Hey, Central Family. It's Matt Woodson here again, Assistant Director of Student Ministries, and I want to share yet another one of my favorite books with you. So, this book is one of the most influential books in my Christian walk, and it's not the Bible, because it's obviously number one, but this book is actually entitled Creation Regained by Al Walters. It was one of my first introductions to Reformed theology, and it shaped not only how I read the Bible, but how I see my work, my vocation, and how I actually live out my faith. So while this is a book of theology, it's actually a really quick read. So it's really small compared to some other big books on theology that are really dense. Um, and it's actually a story. And the main premise is that the entire Bible, uh, the story of man and everything, is actually a story that you can divide into four different sections. And those sections are creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. So here's a real quick rundown of what those sections are. So, creation, that God created the world and that everything was good. Fall, because of Adam's sin, the world is broken and sin has entered into the world, and sin messes with the entirety of creation in a whole host of different ways. Restoration, that God steps in to redeem his creation, and he steps in throughout all of the Bible, all of human history, to undo the effects of sin. And we primarily see that in the Bible through God's covenants. And then finally, restoration, that God has a plan and that he's going to eventually make all things right. Jesus will return and do and undo every effect of sin. We'll be restored to God, one another, and creation for all of eternity. So the story ends good. So, why is this book so formative to me? Well, first, it helped me understand the Bible in a really good way. So, the Bible is frankly a colossal book filled with thousands of different stories that span thousands of different years, with each with different genres and specific authors that have different tones. But if we step back and see the 1,000 foot level, that the Bible is a story with four different acts of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration, we'll be able to uh, actually digest each of those stories a little bit better. We'll see how each story mirrors God's story of goodness in creation, how we're affected by sin in each of those stories, and how God is at work even through really difficult times. But like I said, this book isn't just a book about facts. It actually calls us to action. So if we believe that creation is good, that God is redeeming his creation, and that we're actually stewards of creation, we'll start to see our lives differently. We'll begin to see everything as sacred. So, for example, if you're a law enforcement officer, you'll begin to see your job as protecting God's creation, enforcing God's justice, God's goodness in your job. Or if you're a school teacher, you'll see that you are teaching kids um, what it's like to be curious about God's creation, about all the goodness and seeing that goodness. Or if you're some sort of administrator, you'll see that your job is about restoring order to a disordered world. And I could go on and list a whole bunch of different ways, but that's why I suggest that you read the book, that you'll be able to start to see your job in a different way. And we'll actually see that all of our stories are connected to God's story of redemption, that all of our stories are good and all of our jobs are good, not just those of us who work in the church. Well, finally, this book drastically changed how I saw the end times. So as a kid, I didn't want Jesus to come back. I heard that there were stories of fire and brimstone, just a really bunch of cataclysmic events. So it didn't really seem like a good end to a story. But then, whenever I began to see the end times in the light of restoration, it changed my life. Hearing that everything would be restored captivated my heart. We would be restored to our bodies, that our sickness would be undone. We would be restored to one another, our brothers and sisters who have died, that every broken relationship would be healed in its entirety, and that we would be restored here to the goodness of creation. I began to actually see the heart of God and the heart of His plan, and His plan was way bigger than I first imagined, and it was a plan that was full of hope. So that's what I leave you with tonight. Hope. Hope that God is restoring your lives in every single facet. So, hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Talk to you later. Bye.